All right. Today is March 31st. We're going to begin our budget workshop. We've got a long agenda tonight. I will hand it over to Mayor Pete for some brief updates and announcements.
Thank you. So tonight and next week, we will complete hearing from all the departments. And we'll have a number of appropriations on the town budget that are proposed. And just as an overview, as a town, we're doing very well. You know, we work with all the departments before they come here, and the town budget, I believe, because I've had some preliminary looks at not just this week, but next week. I think when all is said and done, we're going to be quite a bit under 1% of the town budget. So the town budget, let's just say it's 140 million, 1%, 1.4 million. On the town side, we'll be in the 1.1, 1.2 range, something like that, I think, unless something dramatic happens. And that is excellent. The capital budget will probably be pretty close to last year. We're going to have to make some decisions there, and we'll make those at the end where we know where we are. On the Board of Ed side, there were many reasons they're struggling and are proposing much higher increases. So what's going to happen is that we're going to know exactly, by that time we'll know where we are with revenue, with new revenue, with, I'm going to say, supplemental revenues, you know, like special revenues coming in from Amazon, sale of real estate, things like that, injections into the budget, and we'll know where we are. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately a question of balance. It's my plan and the Burgesses to do what we said we're going to do, reduce the mill rate by 2 mills. So that's 2.8 million, but we have a lot of new revenues. So we're I'm just saying we're doing well, we're on course. When we get to the end, as we sit here today, we can reduce the budget by 2 mills, get most of what we want, maybe not everything. Those decisions will have to be made here. Give the Board of Ed more than we've ever given them before, but probably not as much as they want. And at the end, it's going to be balance, putting it all together and coming up with a plan. And, you know, this is really, you know, I guess they used to call it democracy. I don't know what they call it now, but I call it logic and common sense, putting our heads together and finding a way to make it work, supply the services we need, keep the taxes at a reasonable rate, and make the town better every year. So there's going to be some decisions, you know, at the end of the day, you know, it's going to look like, well, education, parks, you know, some of the other things, and we'll make those choices at the end. And the end is not that far away. So so next week is April 7th. So April 14th, we're going to have a discussion along the lines of what I'm talking about now. Then we have a little more time, but once I get a pretty good feeling of where everyone stands, what they think, what the priorities are, I'll meet with James and Allison, and we'll get some refinements to the numbers and come in with an approach, a host of approaches to do this, you can't do this. This is how much we're short. These are the areas we can save. And then as a group, we will make those final decisions. So with that background, I'm going to turn it back over to James, and we'll go through all the departments that are here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to kick off, if there's anyone from the public that is here for a special appropriation, please raise your hand if you're virtual, or stand up and identify yourself. Special appropriation request?
No, you're on he's on a, historical society, right? So isn't that, we have that listed tonight?
No.
Okay, so that's a good time, go ahead.
Don't worry.
Have fun. My name is Joe Haddam. I'm from the Historical Society, and you were kind enough to let me speak last year. And I know you're talking money and you have a lot to talk about. I'm not going to ask for money. I'm going to say thank you. Thank you for the work. Jim Stewart told me not to recognize him, but I'm going to do it anyway. He and Danielle Goway, who's the town grant writer, have been very good to us this year in taking care of us. Now, last year I came with all kinds of slides, if you remember, about work on the Tuttle House. It was a little bit like Alice's restaurant presentation, if you remember that. Anybody here old enough? But just a couple.
A case of blind justice, that's all.
Blind, you got it, you got it. But I'm here to say thank you and to let you know that the Historic Society is working hard for the town. I'm handing this out because I haven't seen many of you come by this year. And this sheet will let you see some of the things that have gone on at the Historic Society this year and as we look forward to next year. And in the event that you're not already a member, I just happen to have membership forms here, which you can circulate. Now, it's $20. We take cash, check, or credit card. So feel free to circulate, send it in. We have, look at this. Wouldn't you be proud to wear something like this around town? These are available with us. How about that, huh?
How much?
$25. But if you're a member, you get 10% off.
Lifetime member.
I won't ask people to raise their hand if you're members.
Why not?
Raise your hand if you're a member. Look at that. Look at that. How about that? April 25th. 70s music. That's what you were thinking about our fundraiser. But thank you. We're having work done inside and out. We want to make the Tuttle House a proud point for the town. Please come by. We're open Saturday mornings from 10 to 4. If you come from 10 to 12, I'll greet you. I'm usually there. And I'll tell you stories. And maybe if you've lived here longer than me, you can tell me stories. Thank you. I know it's been a challenging year for budget, and you have many more people asking for more than $20 like me. So I won't ask for questions because Rocky would have to answer them.
I'm gonna make a comment just for the finance board. So we're hoping then get grants to do the building, but grants have matches. So what that means, it doesn't impact our budget that we're working on, but it impacts the capital budget. And we already have money set aside in the capital budget to make our matches and keep making improvements to the total building. And the plan is that we will ultimately restore the building to its original condition with the wraparound porch for concerts and things like that. And I don't know how many years it'll take, but we will get there. And you guys are doing a great job. Now, why don't you see if anyone can't identify the figure on the shirt? See, does anyone not know what that figure is?
He's one of the mayors.
It appeared on the Johnny Carson show at one point.
So
It's a
That's a noggin.
that's a noggin.
made out of Naga.
Homemade out of Naga.
The people just come to Noggs, but the Noggins ran wild. Hunting. Skin them.
You know how to eat it.
idea who that was.
Yeah,
So
that's
thank
the
you.
outcome.
Thank you.
April 22nd, trivia, Jesse Camille's, come down.
Yes.
It's very entertaining. I thought it was rather boring.
Because you have all the answers on.
Dave, one last comment, that, when you have that Ghost to the Tuttle House event, I get flooded with calls with people that want more tickets, so I would say that's a great event to expand if you can.
Oh, we had another sellout Saturday, our fifth or sixth sellout.
Yeah, but they call all the time looking for tickets.
When you have to have another.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, next time.
There are more ghosts to go
Thank you.
That's right.
Are there any other members from the public wishing to make a special appropriation request? I see none in the room. Lee, can you just confirm there's no one online trying to get our attention?
There's no one online.
There's no one online? All right.
Yeah, there's no one there.
Excellent. All right, so let's jump into our budget presentations for tonight. We're going to start with the police department, and that is A19 in your binders. And Chief, I'll hand it over to you for your presentation, please.
Then we've got the A19. I'll just run everybody down so I break out any specific areas or any questions, we could dive into it. You'll see at the top for regular payroll, our increases in overtime, or I'm sorry, increases in salary, $120,000. That's primarily due to our contractual raises. The part-time account, 31,000. That's driven primarily by an increase in minimum wage. We do fund the crossing guards, which is one of our largest draws from that account for part-time. We also have been using some paid interns as well too to do some administrative work. That's actually been rather helpful. They're making about minimum wage, thereabouts. So that is where that account is coming from. Overtime. So sure, this is usually the one that usually draws a lot of questions. So we were a little high last year. We're looking to get ourselves up to 825 this year. Last year, we were high. We had the retirements of our officers, so we were in a position of having to fund new hires, which weren't actually on the road. And then we actually had to backfill those vacancies with overtime. So fiscally, it was a tough year with having to backfill overtime and also support that. Sometimes we'll end up in a position where we have a surplus in salary account that can help reconcile between the two of them. But having to carry over about 10 to 12 months sometimes to get a police officer online between the police academy, the hiring process. So we were running with a lot of vacancies last year. We are at full staff. We have 4 in the academy now. We generally were able to remain at full staff, but just unfortunately, not all of them were fully serviceable, having completed training or FTO. So last year was a tough year for us. Being at full staff this year, we just got 2 more officers off FTO. And I think that we're gonna have a better idea of where we stand for overtime in this coming fiscal year. So I think that this is gonna be a good projection for us. But it's been a couple years since we've been able to carry through a normal staffed year to really gauge where we're at and take into account contractual raises that we've had previously, and what kind of an impact they'll have on the overtime budget. If that makes sense. The school allowance, we have our school allowance that is contractual. There is officers can request to go to for college reimbursement. We found that to be pretty consistent with the number of officers that they have to request it the year before if they're actually going to use college reimbursement. So that number has been pretty consistent, and we think that this is a good projection for this coming year. Clothing, cleaning allowance, first issues, general equipment, uniforms have gone up a little bit. It's inflationary. Education increment, we're up $2,000. We have hired more officers with college degrees, so they do get a small increment for having a college education. It's usually about $500 to $1,000. So we are seeing an increase in that area. Longevity, that's remaining flat. A large number of younger, newer officers, so we aren't seeing an increase there. professional services, that's generally where we're drawing from for, some of our, accreditation work and, we're really glad with that one. Legal defense fund, that's a contractual requirement by the police contract for, essentially legal insurance for them. Community outreach, that funds a lot of the events. For those of you who've been doing this previously, you might remember it is essentially our DARE line item, but we've moved away from DARE and we found other ways that we like to engage with the youth and the community. One of the most popular ones is obviously National Night Out, but there are events that we do throughout the year that require us to buy certain things, pizza sometimes, some small giveaways that we do when we host outings and stuff. So the $4,500 is remaining consistent. Some of the larger outings like National Night Out, that is done with community support and some fundraising, but that does help offset us with some of the things that we do need. Training service in school. So this is an increase here. The reason we came up with the added 12,000 is police recertification. We've been using a vendor previously that was developed during COVID to do an online learning module. It was relatively affordable, but we're not sure if they're going to continue that platform into the next fiscal year. And we may have to go with another vendor, which would be more costly, approximately $10,000 compared to give or take $1,000 which we were previously paying. So it pays per user rather than a flat assessed fee for the department. In addition to the fact that we have hired so many young officers, we just have to do the post initial police academy training for them, interview interrogation. We send a lot of our officers to the traffic crash school. We send them to basic traffic stop investigations. A lot of things that help develop them as patrol officers. And then there's also obviously other officers who move further up, investigators, command staff, they need additional training to kind of grow into their roles a little bit more. Side note, we have seen a decrease in the number of trained that the state does offer us for minimal tuition. So we do often have to send our officers either across the state or sometimes even out of state to get for training that we used to normally get for free. So that is a consideration. Conferences, $1,500. While we participate in a lot of things, we are sending more of our officers for different events. Traffic lights, that account will remain flat. You maintain, how many is it, Jim? 2 traffic lights in town?
Well, more than 2, it might drop down.
It's
to
2 that usually are the ones that are responsible for this.
I think it's
account.
4 now. It used to be 5. I think around 4 now.
Yeah, so there's 4 traffic lights that the borough is responsible for.
One taking down.
Yeah, we've had that rolled back, but those are usually call outs. It's usually $800 or $900 service fee. So that's why we maintain that account. Traffic signs, there's a slight increase in that account. Just a general inflationary increase. Those are all the signs that you guys see around town, stop signs, no parking, a lot of the different ones we get requests to throughout the year, replace ones that are damaged throughout the course of the year. Let's see what else we have here. Maintenance, building and grounds. We are seeing a reduction in that one, but we have transferred out a lot of our general maintenance to a townwide account. Previously, we would make a projection of everything that we thought was going to be total cost to maintain the building. However, we found that we were duplicating and replicating services, so we're moving to try to use a townwide vendor's townwide service. So what you're seeing there is just our contractual obligations that we now have for things specific to the building. Water systems testing, things like that we need specific to the police department. And when we're seeing larger maintenance issues that we can usually budget for, we're making sure we run those through the town account. So worked with Allison on that. We've given an amount of money that we think is reasonable for us, and that has been moved over into the townwide account. So we have maintenance equipment. That is generally just our in-house building. And we have repairs to motor vehicle. You're seeing an increase to $4,000. The reason for that is we have increased our fleet of older vehicles. We are retaining them for a little bit longer. Previously, we used to just auction them off, but we found that it actually generates more revenue by keeping the vehicles on the fleet, and we keep a smaller auxiliary lot of road job vehicles. So the officers take those, and you'll see them out at the traffic posts throughout town on the road work. When those vehicles are idling out at those traffic posts, they're actually earning money for the borough, generating revenue. So by the time we auction them, generally we're only getting $2,000, $4,000, $5,000. But if we can keep them online longer with a minimal amount of maintenance, since they're not actually patrol vehicles, we're just using them in stationary position, we can actually earn more revenue off them, keeping them online longer. But they do require slightly more amount of maintenance, having that larger fleet. So that's what we're looking for, an increase in that account. Tires, we're seeing an inflationary increase in tires, plus having a slightly larger fleet, we need to make sure we can maintain those. Car rental, that's flat. Let's see. The chief's expense account, wish I could say it was something extravagant, but when I need to buy pizza or bagels for a major case for the officers when they're working around the clock, $500 is running it close this year, so it's usually about once a quarter or something. I need to be able to get something for everybody and make sure the guys can work through a case or something. Postage, slight increase, $250. Your apartment supplies, again, inflationary, $500. Cleaning supplies, inflationary anticipation, $500. Medical supplies, so down at $9.25. We're able to replace our medical bags in this current fiscal year, so we won't need to request them this year. Prisoner expenses, it's flat. General, that's our investigative fund, that stays flat. Canine maintenance, $500, slight increase in food. The next big one would be firearms. So the state renegotiated the contract, the state contract on firearms and ammunition. So we were able to order quite a bit of ammunition in anticipation of the contract ending. I believe it was in January, but they've renegotiated it because of the inflationary change with ammunition. So we are anticipating a larger increase next year when we make our bulk ammunition order. So that will account for that. See, evidence collection, the $4,500. So the increase comes from what we started doing was, in addition to buying crime scene tape, DNA collection kits, the type of stuff that the detectives need, officers to basically process crime scenes. We've also added in a transcript service. So what that is previously the officers used to have to watch their recorded interviews and transcribe everything by hand by watching it, time consuming, throughout a lot of man hours, and also sometimes overtime. We were able to find a service that a larger city uses that we can just send our recordings to, and they'll transcribe it for the detective. So it actually cuts down on the amount of time. So it's a controllable flat cost rather than having to pay an officer to do something that is generally a clerical task. See what else we have. J lines. I'm going to defer to Jeremy on that. It's a bid, but that's for the street lines. I don't know before we actually carry it. So I don't think we have to have for it. Okay. Yeah, it's street lines. We carry it in our line item or our budget, but it's administered by you guys. Equipment, general equipment's going up. We have a couple items in there. For replacement equipment, police officers, our ballistic vests come out of there. Slight increase. They went up a little bit, but we also did switch models of our ballistic vests. So the thought behind that was we went from ones that are required to be replaced every 5 years to ones that are now required to be replaced every 8 years. So we'll get a longer life out of them. It's an incremental increase, maybe $300 or $400, but we feel it's better investment since the contract does require the vest to be replaced in accordance with the manufacturer's expiration date. So going from 8 years to 5 years made more sense to us, offering an increase in protection and resistance, ballistic resistance. See dues for various organizations up slightly. And those are a total. If you actually take out the contractual raises, I believe our number was around 1.5%. What I tried to present you is meat of a budget as we could this year, taking everything into consideration. The only other difference too with payroll that is worth pointing out is we are going with a $30,000 50-50 cost share split with the town on a full-time social worker. That social worker is going to help out our current social worker, Sherry, who we've worked with over the years, and we're looking to have a split where this social worker, which will be a BSW, will work out of town offices 2 to 3 days a week, and then rotate 2 to 3 days a week back into the police station. Sherry's gotten overwhelmed with a lot of requests for service, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of things that, you know, unfortunately really aren't in the purview of the police department, but by virtue of her skill set, she generally ends up managing and handling. So we're hoping that having a townwide social worker could help with alleviating some of that workload, deal with other things, nutritional needs, elderly services, some of the other things that we found some holes in our service here in town. And I think it'll be a pretty good mix for us.
All right, so Chief, I've got some questions for you. With overtime's obviously a hot topic, so you're requesting for $100,000 more. 22, 23, 23, 24 had some significant over expenditures in that line item. As of December 31st, you're at 569,000. Do you anticipate expending the full 725, or will it approximately double to the 1.13 million that it at least is gearing towards through the end of last year?
This year, I don't think we'll be at the amount that we were at last year. We are seeing a significant drop. We went from about 95,000, maybe about 105, our highest month in overtime, but it's gone down to about 50,000 last month. I think we're on track for that this month too, having those last officers online. About 85 to 95% of our overtime stems from contractual shift short. So what that means is that the overtime stems from officers taking contractual vacation, sick time, personal time. And because we have the shift minimums in our patrol division, they're required to be backfilled. So that's where most of our overtime is coming from. There's a couple things going on with it. Historically, we've always had 3 officers out for any given reason, be it workers' comp, injury, whatever it is. So taking that, put that off to the side for a second. Also having these retirements that have been going on since I'd say 2022, 2023, it's taken a lot of time. We weathered the storm of police retention and recruitment fairly well, but that doesn't mean that we still haven't had a fiscal impact on that, getting officers online to train them. We do have a good number of recruits. We have had a lot of success, but we can't unfortunately get the amount of time down to train them. So initially around 21, 22, the challenge was getting seats in the police academy. So we would have candidates, but we weren't getting academy seats. That seems to have been addressed at the statewide level now. So you can get seats out of the state academy and the satellite academies. And now we do have the recruits, but we still can't get that time down to get them online around the road. We did hire a large number of lateral officers about over the past 2 to 3 years. That did help us in the short term, but we generally don't want to have an entire police department of lateral officers too. We have found a lot of benefits of hiring newer officers that we recruited and put through the academy ourselves. We start to lose some of the identity of police departments and their own culture. So we have had to essentially bite the bullet for the last year with getting new officers online through the recruit process. So we have had some discussions with the union, very preliminarily about, I mean, to be honest, patrol division is where we need our up staffing. That is our issue. There's some administrative areas. We're a little bit top heavy, maybe in some other divisions that if we were able to reallocate, we could probably get that number down. But contractually, I have to field 5 patrol officers on day shift, 6 on evenings, and 5 on midnights every day. And if that falls behind that number, then it's going to generate overtime. And then looking back historically over the last couple of fiscal years, you are seeing the difference of contractual wage increases in the general wage index starting to have that effect too on the overtime as it compounds over it. So it's hard to say. I don't think we'll be as high as last year, Well, are we gonna be over budget this year? Yes, probably. That number that I gave you, about 85% or so, the remaining overtime, a lot of it is grant reimbursed. We do participate in a large number of grants, traffic enforcement. A lot of our investigative overtime is funded through federal and state grants. And then there's usually anomalies, for example, a shooting or a major case that can generally be $10,000 to $40,000. You generally will get those once, twice, 3 times a year. But those are the ones that we kind of know or can anticipate that we're gonna have that, but the shift short is just something that is a decision I think that next year we'll be able in a better position to try to project out and make a decision whether we're going to look at reallocation of personnel, which would require input from the union, or else whether we want to hire our staffing on the patrol officer side to try to increase those minimum numbers and reduce the amount of overtime obligations we have anytime they take the contractual leave. It's a benefit, but at the same time, you're seeing a fiscal downside too, because we do recruit a lot of officers. We do have a high retention rate. They do stay. They do have a competitive benefits package in terms of time off and leave. But when they use that, it obviously requires a change. And the other thing is the new workforce doesn't generally want overtime. They would prefer probably to have their time off and not come in. And this is a challenge that we're having with some of the things in the contract still being structured from a defined benefit perspective, which would usually result in more overtime because of the impact that it would have on pension. But obviously we moved away from that. We're only a small number of officers remaining in that defined benefit plan. So we need to make changes in that contract in order to accommodate that. And those are discussions. We've had some very preliminary ones. Look forward to having more and see if we can make some headway on that. But absent a major change in that area or hiring additional officers, we're going to continue to struggle with overtime.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
keep going over.
Oh, I was gonna ask, you mentioned grants can cover some of the overtime. Are the numbers we seeing after, like the net of that grant? Or will the grant, like in 23-24, we expended 1.26 million? Is that reduced by grants or is this the final number after the grants have been expended?
Is that reduced by those grants?
Yeah, it's after, so the county department started funneling like the grant overtime to separate accounts, so that gets like washed, so that doesn't actually ever hit the overtime.
Okay, so the
This overtime,
actual,
no.
the actual overtime grant included is actually higher than this
Yeah.
1.2 million, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But the
Um,
grants we can't use them really to fill that minimum staffing level. It's only usually augmentation or supplemental. So for example, traffic enforcement, we do distracted driving, DUI, crooked ticket. Those officers that are fielded are on a grant, paid at overtime to be here, but they can't count those minimum manpower. So unfortunately, we can't plug them in to use to reduce those gaps in our shift.
Thank you, Mayor Pete.
Just an observation, and you said an awful lot, Colin, and I'm sure Anthony, the police people, the people that have been here understand it, but there's a lot of moving parts. But in my mind, the last several years have been more difficult in overtime because of the fact that about 10 years ago or more, the town eliminated the defined benefit pension plan. And on a statewide basis, what's been happening is that police officers in their 40s who still have quite a bit of time left to work in their careers retire and take other jobs. So we've seen almost our entire workforce in that age group leave. Now, they leave because they can, really do much better in life by leaving. And that necessitates us hiring new officers. Now, on the plus side, Naugatuck has turned out to be a destination department where a lot of people want to come. So we've done very well bringing in new recruits. But at the same time, they have to go to the academy, they have to go through field training. And when they go through that, there's a shortage of manpower and there's overtime. So I predict that after, I don't know when, but maybe not this year, next year, somewhere in there, when we're at full staff and we're not losing people because they're going elsewhere for pension related issues, that will do better. So that's my opinion. I don't know if you agree or not, but
I agree, and I think it's important that we look at this, budget, with the overtime and grade on a curve. While it is an increase that you're seeing, you should be aware that most of our peer agencies that we usually would compare ourselves to have fared much worse. They've struggled a lot more with recruiting and retention. Our numbers have been very good, chronically, having to pull back specialized positions, and then you should take much extra and put back the rest of the ranks, going 12-hour shifts potentially. So we have fared fairly well through this storm. But unfortunately, there is a cost to that. We can't necessarily ignore the national conversation that happened that did make law enforcement more of a popular profession for past several years. We did have a fallout from that. We were getting very low numbers. We got good recruits, but we had to work a lot harder for them. Some of the challenges we were doing or facing, and we were getting through that was we were hiring our officers earlier before the academy. So, for example, the academy might start in January. We were hiring them as early as October and November and bringing them into their khaki uniform and having them do administrative tasks because other agencies were offering them or trying to essentially poach them, but he could offer them a position to get them on the payroll, and then we wouldn't have to start that background process all over again. At its peak in terms of difficulty in recruitment and retention, we'd look at 20-25 candidates and maybe have one or two that were viable. Now we kind of turned that corner. We really don't see that as much now. But that's really where we're coming from those past couple of years. So I think we're in a much better place now, but there definitely is a conversation that we're going into now at this point where we either need to look at changes to the CBA or else staffing levels. And I think that coming to some sort of a meeting middle ground or understanding that the union is probably the best bet.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
With regards, more grant talk, so we can utilize the grants if we've exceeded the staffing levels. Are there more grants that we should be focused on getting that? And maybe you don't know, maybe you or our grant writer might know, but is there more grants that we should be putting a laser focus on? Or do we
Sure
exhaust
about
them all?
anymore. I mean, we do,
It's not that the grants don't use when we exceed staffing levels, they're specific to something. So if you have a
Right.
DWI grant, like you said, we could click or ticket grant, that's specific to hiring officers on top of whether we had one officer working a shift or
I
10.
see.
On top of them, just to specifically enforce DWI.
Okay.
Plus, seatbelt enforcement, cell phone enforcement, doesn't help out with. So if we got more of those grants, we'd have to fill them obviously by officers working them, which
Right.
is a good thing, but it not necessarily hit our bottom line.
Gotcha.
And that's really where we're going with our targeted enforcement. That's going with our reduction in crime statistics. So in our annual report, we pointed out that most across the board, generally double-digit fine reductions, but that's really where you're moving the needle in terms of making Naugatuck a safer place to live, a better place to work,
Right.
A better community is reduction on violent offenders. We participate in the Violent Crime Task Force, both the state and the federal one, the DEA, US Marshals, and that's where we target the offenders that are most susceptible to violent crime. And then another large number of our stats come from traffic crashes. So the traffic grants actually help us get focused on problem intersections, problem roadways. And again, we've seen significant reductions in those problem intersections and roadways, but that's accomplished outside of the general patrol. So you're getting an actual really laser focus on some of the problem areas of those grants, but it doesn't help us in terms of addressing the day-to-day staffing.
That does make sense. How about with regards to the building maintenance? Is there anything that we could possibly chase after? I don't think the building's old enough for like brownfield type of remediation, but is there any other? Senator or mayor? Are
it just, that's not townwide, or is it? It's in addition, should it be, I guess?
The items in his budget are contractual maintenance agreements
Okay.
that we left in each department's budget because they were specific to that building.
Okay,
And we didn't have a way
mean,
of
like-
collectively
Janitors and stuff like that,
cleaning
cleaning.
service and mostly it's cleaning service and a couple of specific contracts.
Did outsource our cleaning service recently from a borough employee to having a cleaning service actually.
And that's the big increase is that.
it's more expensive. to do the service? Am I hearing that correctly?
No,
Did I
No,
misunderstand?
yeah, no, it's actually,
outsourced it.
yeah, we
Yeah.
outsourced it.
So you're saying the big increase is because of the outsource?
Yes,
Instead of keeping a borough staff member doing it?
it's a shift in cost.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
It's moving over, okay. And then finally, you mentioned the J lines. You guys said it was about the same, but there was a $7,000 increase in the J lines. Is that something we need to adjust?
We've seen that over the last 2 years because really that's just paint increases. As you go to Home Depot, you've seen how much residential paint is.
Yeah.
The paint specifically, we saw it after, I guess it would have been a 22 or maybe 22, 23 budget. So just the 30 year run out, we've seen paint go up. We have almost the same contractor wins the bid every year. They're always lower. Their costs haven't gone up much, but their paint costs have.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. For 200.
Diane, go ahead.
Chief, now, I've been on the board a very long time. Question, I know years ago, we talked about an increase in patrols, like adding one officer to each shift. We were willing to do that, but unfortunately, because of the contract, it didn't do anything because you add staff, it increased the mandatory minimum. So what we wanted to do was add an officer, but not add to so instead of having 5 officers, you would have 6, let's say on the day shift. And then, we wanted to make sure that it stayed as though it was 5,
Correct,
mandatory
yes.
minimum. So that's still the same, correct?
Correct. So before we necessarily, and I asked the board for hiring ideally 3 officers, I think that we can maybe accomplish that through the contract negotiation.
Okay,
Those numbers I see as being static. I don't see them moving. My position is our shifts are staffed adequately at 5, 6, and 5.
right,
If anything, we can maybe reduce our midnight shift a bit, but that's contractual. So the solution would be, like you said, to add to the roster, so we'd have to go through several different officers before they would reduce that minimum. We contractually, if we're like 2 off per shift. So if you have a buffer of 2 or 3,
right.
then they wouldn't be able to necessarily do it. So our priorities over the last couple of years was getting the 3 SROs up and running. So we always had the SRO in the high school, and we addressed City Hill. And then the third one, which was part of my plan, was to have the roving one for the elementary schools. So those ones, they aren't part of minimum manpower. It was kind of complex of how we use them for staffing levels. If one leaves, the other one can cover, but the goal would be just patrol officers. And I still feel that we could probably accomplish that by repurposing some of our other staff that we have and put them back on the line. But that does require negotiations to do that. But I hope that this time next year, we'll be in a better position to hopefully say whether we need to hire to get that number down. And we'll have a good idea if we're looking at a large overtime number like we were the previous year, and say, 3 officers at $8,000 a year is going to be more cost effective than $1.2 million overtime, because you will see that begin to drop significantly. And the reason I keep referring to 3 is that we've always traditionally historically had 3 officers out with some sort of leave or something, and also was to be allocated to 1 or 2 for each of the 3 shifts and boost them by 1 number. So definitely tracking it, and hope that having a better staffing this year, we can come into it next year with a better idea and better plan for everyone.
Okay,
I think,
thank you.
sorry, cut you off.
Yeah.
We did do some sort of study where it was to reallocate the officers that we already have back to the road is more cost effective than having to hire 3 full-time officers and all the costs that are associated with the health insurance,
Sure. Yeah, anything to increase, that would be,
Yeah.
that's really the goal, so that, it's the officers, because you want to protect the officers being, having more on patrol and having, but not hitting that mandatory minimum, making that if you add, and I'm hoping people are following me, but maybe if you want to explain the mandatory minimum for some people, because I'm babbling about it.
We have to field a certain number of officers every day on shift. So it's 5 on day shift, 6 on evenings, and 5 on midnights. But we usually run it's 9, 9, and 9, or 9, 10, and 9 are bid to each shift, and they work 3 rotating shifts to ensure coverage 24/7, basically. So, if we can increase the numbers of officers that are bid or assigned to those shifts, we could help increase or decrease the amount of overtime. So if they take vacation, sick time, or personal time, then we won't be eating away at that, causing overtime. But again, hiring is probably the last option, where I think we
Yeah.
can maybe do it through some other effective ways. We did get some concessions the last year or two, with moving some personnel around, but it's not always as simple, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We do need a lot of assistance with that, so but we are working on it. We're hoping we can do it.
Yeah, because I know that was the talk years ago. Thank you.
Okay.
Chief, when you say lateral transfer, that's a certified officer from another department coming here, so it saves us money. They don't have to go to the academy, they just do field training.
Correct.
Which is a very good thing.
Yes.
The other thing my concern is, and it's been for many years, is the heck with the overtime. The other night you had 2 officers at the hospital, not hurt. So now you have to go to larger patrol areas. If something happened, that backup officer was further away. My concern is the safety of the officers. And that's always been my concern. Sometimes you have 2 accidents, you go 4 officers. Now you've got 1 left if something happens. And I would love to see more officers on shift, out on the road, just to back each other up. It's really a safety concern.
I'd like to ask, Alice a question, the deferred contribution, the town match for that, is that strictly based on their base? Or is it on their gross, including?
Gross.
It is, okay.
Any other questions? Do you guys have the animal control too? Is that yours?
Mhm.
While you're standing? Yeah. So, for everyone on the budget book, it's B27.
You got it, 100%?
Yeah, you can do things.
I get the easy one.
Yeah, Dan oversees.
Everybody loves an animal.
Animal control, so I went through it.
There'll be questions, I don't know about that. No. You can see in the animal control budget, about a little over 80% of it is purely salary. We talk about basically 2 things. So our payroll expended last year was 123,000, we're gonna go up to 168,000. We've increased 2 part-timers, just in the last fiscal year. We obviously have, this is also, incorporating our full-timer. Recently got a raise, and then the wages are going up. We have 1 full-timer down there. We now have 3 part-timers. We also have what looks on paper like a part-time ECO, and he is, Carl Hurd, as most of you guys heard of and know. But he does not have animal control officer responsibilities. He was, more of a kennel assistant. We've exploded over the last 3 years with the amount of animals down there. It is full most of the time, whereas when the chief and I started here, it wasn't full ever. It was very common to have 1 or 2 dogs down there, and a lot of times have 0. It's full almost all the time. So adding a kennel attendant whose only responsibilities works about 15 hours a week is cleaning, feeding, and medicating, and that's it. Not having to stop cleaning or stop feeding to run on a call. That's been a godsend for the actual officers who are, obviously, if we're getting more dogs, they're busier. Our cruelty cases have gone up hundreds of percent over the last couple of years. And our dogs, our impounds have also gone up hundreds of percent year after year after year since 2021. We've been able to add a couple part-timers. Their salaries will come up a little bit. That's the biggest difference that you see. The other difference is vet fees. We're looking to increase $4,000. That's something that has just skyrocketed over the last couple of years. Vets are charging more, also with more dogs. That's not even a 100% realistic number. We get a lot of donations down to animal control that we use. A lot of those donations are specific to specific dogs. A dog's down that needs a couple $1,000 surgery, people will donate to go specifically to that dog. So a lot of that donation money goes, the vet fees, that doesn't come out of here. But we still do need to increase that, just the amount of dogs that we have. We've seized 4 dogs in the last really 2 days, starting Thursday. 2 business days. And then the building, there's a state law, we have 3.5 years left to comply with the state law. That is almost, as I describe it, an engineering plan for new animal control facilities. It's more of an engineering plan than a law. There were really no laws on animal control facilities, some rudimentary stuff. They've added heating and cooling laws. We've added just in the last 2 weeks in animal control. We've redone the kennel doors. Dogs were getting out, some of the latches were breaking. We spent what I thought was a very small amount of money, $5,000 to get all new kennel doors that are solid doors with bolted on latches. They look really nice. If you want to go down there and see them, they just finished last week. Just this week, starting today, we're getting the floors epoxy. They were untreated concrete floors, which is a huge problem for diseases. They were doing the best they can to clean down there. Dogs are still getting diseases. When they get diseases now, we have to move dogs out of there to our partners in Oxford, Middlebury, Woodbridge. That was not, they weren't liking us too much. 1 to 2 dogs is fine, 12 dogs is different. So getting that epoxy floor down to comply not only with the law, but to help out the building has been, hopefully will be a huge thing that's happening just this week. So some of those building improvements that we've had, we need to continue. They need to be washer and dryer, certain things where I want to go up on that line. I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions.
That building will never be adequate.
Right,
No, that building is presently constituted, will never be adequate, and I have concerns whether it's gonna even be able to comply fully with the state law. We're gonna do everything we can do within budget now to get it to a point where at least the dogs are safe. That's what I would look into. We started this epoxy floor project at $50,000, which I thought was a little ridiculous. We got it down to about 11% of that, a little over $5,000.
so,
To be able to do it to the point where we can get it to comply, and the dogs are safer now than they ever were.
so Rocky, the good news is we're gonna try and do a new facility behind the police station.
Yep.
We're eligible for a grant to pay half. We're trying to partner with Cheshire and Prospect and anyone else that wanted to join to make it a regional effort, cheaper for everyone. It's not locked in stone that it's gonna happen, but we're working on it. I think we all agree the facility is woefully inadequate. And we have a very strong workforce at animal control who really care about the animals and do a great job. You know, like you talked about an uptick in animal cruelty cases. Don't pick on your dog in Naugatuck, you're going to jail. I mean, they're tough. And we have a great community and people donate money. And it's great, but they need a new facility. Now, the bad news is, and Dan alluded to it, the state passed some new laws on requirements for air conditioning and all types of things, but a facility along the lines of what we need, it's in the $6 million range, which would mean that we would get a grant for $3 million and divide up 3 million between the 3 towns proportionately, but it would be a major capital expense. And it will happen. I don't know when, but I think everyone wants to get out of the current location.
Yeah, the building and the
But
location.
it's a bigger ticket item than it sounds. You know, it sounds easy to build, you know, an area for the animals, but probably more expensive than building homes for humans.
And I have a good authority from the state that as long as there's a drop dead date in the law. But, you know, if we're putting the last coat of paint on a building, nobody's getting shut down. They want to see movement towards that, which we've already started in this building. Not that we comply with this building, but 3.5 years might be practical to do everything the mayor's speaking of. But as long as, like any law, there's flexibility as long as they see movement, if they see in 3.5 years as a plan, and hopefully then a construction project started, there's flexibility in that.
So Chief, just 2 questions pertaining to the, you have the one person for supernumerary, and then you have the full-time person. The person that's certified, for lack of a better words, supernumerary is making less per hour than the person that is not. about 70 cents per hour less.
Then I don't have that movie. Okay, you have that?
That's Steve,
Yeah, no,
but he's on another part of the
Is
budget.
that another part of the budget? He does not come out of this payroll.
Fully, he doesn't fully.
Fully come out of this.
he's like shared.
Yes.
And just the other thing is, I've seen these guys out there and, there was. Having ground dogs, wrestling with them, getting their uniforms and stuff, pretty messed up, and their clothing allowance was only $400. That buys one jacket.
Hmm.
Now, do they, if it's damaged while they're working, does it get replaced, or is that $400 just a cleaning allowance,
It'll go. It's not something allowance that's for new,
The $400 I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is like, if, their uniforms get messed up pretty bad.
800, we're getting 800.
It's 800 for 2 people, 400 each.
Well, that's for part-timers. So right now we have that in the budget this year. The 2 part-timers are, that's where we bought their uniforms out.
But yeah, to your
Yes, they-
question, if something does get ripped on the job,
Yeah.
they can submit for a reimbursement for a new item.
Cause that's like,
And they have-
$400 that buys a jacket.
Yeah, sure, absolutely correct.
Yeah, we spent up, I would say just for the 2 new part-timers and then our full-timer actually needed a jacket around. Like one shirt, just for what they needed for 2.5 people there, was pretty much the whole budget this year of that specifically. And there's always, like I said, due to what they're working in. We've been a little more strict on them wearing uniforms
Yeah,
full-time. If they're there and there's nobody in there and they want a hoodie and while they're cleaning, that's different. So those pants usually here will also replace those pants.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is WPCA. In your binders, we're gonna go backwards to section A, number 30.
Chair, I'm not standing up. Don't have to stand up.
Thank you. Wow.
Not a good sound. Maybe someone else wants to go ahead.
Okay, you tell me when.
You're on?
Okay, as most of you probably know, the borough contracts with Veolia to run our treatment plant. We also have them run our incinerator. The way it works is they pay us to lease our incinerator and then they burn sludge for other communities. And we pay them to run the treatment plant and maintain the system. I'm just gonna go through the highlights where which items have gone up and down. We have a
Sure.
small,
Start with the basics, so,
I think I just,
well, no, just tell them that we're plus 215 in
Yeah.
expenses. But on the revenue side, the revenues go up
even more, yeah.
even more. So
Revenues on the last page.
we're really not spending 215, it's offset by the revenues.
Yeah, I was gonna get there, but. thank you.
Well, I would start, well, everyone's worried about spending 215,000.
Yeah, but I wanted to get them all stressed and then say, hey, it's not that bad.
They're on easy.
Ooh.
No,
We need
just,
that.
Attention and release the key to quality.
Exactly. So we have a small increase that's contractual. There's a CPI increase on the Veolia fees, as the mayor just said. That's more than offset by contractual increases, CPI fees on what we get for leasing our incinerator. And then there's, again, CPI increases for maintaining our collection system. And so there's an increase of 215,000, but if you go to the last page, we're forecasting more than that increase in revenues coming as conservative.
Saying is you're requesting 4.5 million, but on the revenue side, it's gonna be 4.6.
Yes,
It's $100,000. We're making $100,000.
plus profit sharing and your profit again.
Well, no, I'm just saying, it's like, it's basically a wash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This budget is a wash.
yeah, it's better than last year. Yeah.
Anyone have any questions? Let's move on.
Didn't need the chair.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so up next is Public Works. So section B, we're gonna start tab number 1.
Yeah, this is where the chair comes in.
This is
It's not rude. Okay, so I'm gonna again, there's a lot of little increases, but we'll get through it slowly. Regular payroll is contractual increases only. Regular vehicle maintenance, again, contractual increases. Regular street maintenance, contractual increases. Regular, recycling, yeah, minimum wage increases, thank you, Sandra, for. And then, regular payroll part. So as you know, we got a lot of downtown work going on. There's gonna be a lot, you haven't noticed? There's gonna be a lot of landscaped areas. And they're gonna come online in the spring. And what we were proposing is, well, years ago, the Parks Department was at 10 employees, it was reduced to 9. What we like to do is bring them back to 10 and really try to dedicate someone to the downtown area to actually keep the plants and the landscape areas up so they don't become weed infested. Right now, this is a whole year. We don't really need the person until spring. So what we're suggesting is we fund 7 weeks of employment. Which would, 7 periods, 14 weeks, which would take that total down to 704, 550, and an increase of 38, 588. So about half of it is contractual, and the other half is the added quarter of a year. So we will bring the person in whatever, March, April kind of thing.
So then that real increase, it would be technically for the 25-26 is when we'll really see that 92,000.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
following year, then you would,
It'll be the
see another,
full-
what is it, $80,000?
Yeah, what, yes.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
So Jim, that 758 number is reduced to what?
The 758 reduces to my calculation, 704,550.
So that means your total budget, we could take 54 off of your final number?
Yes,
So 234 minus 54,
yes.
good work.
Okay. Regular payroll, if the golf course goes down, we replaced our greenskeeper and we had some overlap. So we had both people for training purposes over for a few months, so that's why that's going down. Part-time recreation is minimum wage, recycling center minimum wage, part-time Hot Brook, again, minimum wage increases. Next increase is clothing and uniforms. That's additional costs, contractual, longevity. Allowance is going down because of all the younger hires. They obviously don't have the years of service. Employee reimbursements, that's for their CDL and medical cards. That fluctuates depending on you. They're good for several years, so depending on how many they have, so that's a reduction. Conference of dues, increase in some of the dues costs. The next is sanitation control. That's the actual cost as it is now for the porta potties. Snow removal. This is our money for hiring contractors to assist snow removal in the winter. We're reducing that by $20,000. Jeremy's got more trucks on the road, more employees, so good for him. It's not all good news, so just hold your horses. Bulk trash. We're asking for an additional $2,000 to cover propane tanks. We're getting tons of propane tanks that are expired and we can't get rid of them. They used to take them, recertify them and Blue Rhino and such, but they won't take them anymore. We found that someone will take them for $5 cylinder, so we're getting rid of those that way. I'm going on the borough board tomorrow night to try to enact a $5 cylinder fee for the public, so that should cover itself. In addition, the state is planning in October to have a manufacturer's program where, like the mattresses and electronics, when you buy a propane tank, you would pay a fee so that your disposal would be free. And so our fee would disappear and our town costs potentially would disappear. That's proposed for October. Who knows when it'll actually go into effect. Dumpsters, we hire a contractor, dumpsters, that again is a CPI contractual increase. MSW recycling, again, a 3%, 3+% contractual increase. And then our next item, an increase, tipping fees, fairly large increase, and again, the 3% CPI increase of 52,000. Again, we have a contract with F&G Construction, and we negotiated that several years ago. Our alternative was Mira, and our contract includes a guaranteed 5% reduction. So even though it's increased, we guarantee that will be 5% less than what we would have spent being with the other choice, which is Mira. The next item is meal allowances. This is an estimate based on the contractual and experience. It's a pretty difficult way of calculating if they're hired for a certain number of hours a day, a certain period. During a certain period, they get a few bucks to buy a meal. So it changes depending on how bad the winter is and what's going on. But this is what we're thinking we need to make it through the year. The next item is road sand and salt. Well, that 20,000 we took off of plowing, we're looking to add it to our sand and salt account. I think even though the winter didn't seem so bad, we expected we expended more than our budget. Salt prices have gone up, and obviously people expect a nice black road when the ice stops falling. And no matter, even though we don't get, a foot of snow, every time it dusts, every time there's icing, we got to put the same amount of salt down. And it's really not that expensive when you compare a couple car accidents.
Do you have any left over from the years?
You
Because
like
if you
this?
do, you can fill the pothole.
Jeremy go.
Oh,
Okay, the next are street capital outlays. So if you go to page, find it.
Sorry, Jim, question for you. You said that the sand and salt, the increase stuff, but the actual expended amounts so far. Oh wait, never mind. I'm looking at 24. Oh yeah, no, for 24, that's correct. Yeah, it's at 0 so far. So shouldn't we have something in there?
I don't know why it's showing that.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
Everything has been invoiced yet.
Okay,
We're projecting to go through about 24,000, 26,000 over for this year.
okay, thank you. The page 3.
Okay, so
Correct. Yes. I'm bringing it
trying
down
to
to
get
page
there.
7 now.
Page
page
10,
7?
10.
page 10.
Page 10, thank you.
You're welcome,
Okay,
Jim.
First item is a dump truck bed lot. So what this item is when they lift up the bed of the large trucks, they need a safety device to put in there so that if the hydraulics go, they don't get crushed. And this would be for the service trucks, or when they're out on the road, they can actually service the vehicle rather than picking these items up and trying to relocate them and move them. The next item, so it's a safety item, it's definitely needed. The next is a 70,000 pound bottle jack. Again, for the new service truck we got, that's so they can change tires on the road rather than calling for service. Next, Jeremy will explain the two safety cabinets.
Yeah, they're just fire cabinets for the street car garage. We currently have two over 20 years old. Garage, so these will just be replacements for those.
And then the small equipment.
Small equipment, we used to kind of break it out, hey, we need a chainsaw, hey, we need a blower, hey, we need weed whacker. Kind of found that when we go throughout the year, we're not projecting what's gonna break down, what we're gonna replace, so we kind of want to take this sum of money. Pull out, all right, we need a chainsaw here, backpack blower here, trimmers here, so we're not, we're not really breaking it down, so we can use that fund and purchase some small.
Next, Sandra is requesting a small trailer.
Yeah, this trailer is, for our field maintenance. We have a couple of attachments that are coming newer and they're wider. So they don't fit on your typical trailers with trailer. So I'm requesting that we replace one and, we've done pretty well replacing trailers, it's just that all of our equipment, I don't have to send out crews of multiple people, so for every truck, I pretty much need a trailer because all of our equipment is trailer. Without trying to extend the longevity of our larger equipment without having to drive through town, so outside of town together, we're pretty much trailering everything at this point. So that trailer is needed for that, field maintenance, equipment to fit on it.
What size trailer?
It's a 10 foot, but it's 7 feet wide, it's 7.2 wide. For the sand pro with the attachment on it. And then the next line item is the sand pro accessory that does not fit on the trailer. At $21. That's just another attachment that goes on the back of the machine. That's the one that brings baseball fields that when you see it out there dragging the clay on the field. We're also requesting our small equipment. It's the same situation with Jeremy, our weed whackers, blowers, backpack blowers, trimmers, everything is, we probably have about 2 years on all of our equipment because of the amount of use that, they take probably long.
Okay, so the next ones are for the golf course. Scott, our new greenskeeper, is requesting what is a molded plow. And apparently, what they do is they aerate the green, they take the plugs out of the green, and this device would pick up all these plugs. And what he's saying is that he wants to do larger plugs. Currently, it takes him the majority of the day to aerate the course, and it's closed most of the day. And this would cut his time in half and allow us to open up the course for most of the day. So he could get out there in the morning, get the aeration done, and then open the course up fast.
Just got here, he's awfully pushy.
I know, what's going on?
Let me tell you something. He is the best.
Let's talk about the golf course.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. You better give him this
No, I
plow.
will say this, I love the golf course, but this guy that we brought in from Fairview Farms is fantastic. Anyone who plays Hop Brook will notice in the last 6 months, it's just been upgraded significantly, which will ultimately result in, higher prices, more revenues. There's already, last year we went up. Man, I don't know, I think we hit 850. Don't forget, when I started, we were at 325. We're up to 850 a year now and rising. And that's with really low rates.
Wow.
And this guy is, Joe was great. This guy's fantastic.
Okay, so the next item is a 12-inch trenching bucket. Right now, he's got a 24-inch bucket for his little backhoe. He would use the 12 inches bucket to install drainage and repair irrigation and such. And it causes obviously a lot less damage to the course, works a lot faster, and less cost to restore the grass and the material that he digs out for $1,000. And the final item he's asking is a DR mower. This would be used to cut the brush areas, establish the tall fescue that the mayor absolutely adores. So it allows you to cut the areas down at a higher level than I guess the mowers do, and keep an area that's, I'm not a big golfer, but it's more natural. And there you go.
All right, any questions?
On the, lead bump.
Yeah, we missed it.
Oh, I didn't even know.
I need it, I just put in I put in Ventrac to give her diagram because she wasn't Ventrac.
I wasn't
No,
even listening to that.
the Ventrac V plow is a attachment for our Ventracs. We own two Ventracs. We own two blowers. Some of the snow, obviously at times is not snow, you can't really the snow blower, so we're asking for another V plow. Those machines have become quite significant in our operation. They're very versatile.
My concern is the 4,500, you're gonna get one for 4,500.
Oh, yes.
I know you usually
I
do
just-
your homework,
Yeah,
I don't want it the last minute goes at over 5,000, then it's capital.
I just got a refresh quote and I added $100. Here was that like $100, I think, just in case she'll get
I
it.
was wondering,
Yes,
I
thank
don't
you.
want to.
Well, check on your trailer.
Down the line.
Oh, this one does, yeah. This one is,
Goes right out the door.
that one goes right out the door, and it's gonna come useful too, because we're adding obviously a lot of sidewalks where we typically like didn't do the right side of our avenue, we will have to now. So there's a lot of areas that continuously add on, and we can add on until the sidewalks. Sounds like,
We do downtown sales, we utilizing those machines from the park department.
yeah, they're versatile to move the snow into the road so that his equipment can come in and remove it from large snowstorms.
It's just a plow or you can change the part then?
This is just the plow, the 4,500, but we have multiple attachments. Those machines it has rough cut mowers. It's got a seating attachment. We have, like I said, the snow blower. I have a broom attachment. We have finished mowing decks for that, rough cut decks to cut the rough. So we have about 10 to 12 attachments for those machines.
Jim, I have a question. You guys do the town sidewalks and stuff.
Some of them, yes.
Yeah, so this year, significant issues with the sidewalks with more ice this year. And in front of Big Y, that whole plaza. I know it's not ours. Sidewalks where kids are walking on Rubber Avenue. Can't we plow and build? Can't you guys plow it
We can.
Yes, and you have,
and build them?
yes, through the police department and then through the.
All right,
Yeah,
because
we
it
gotta
wasn't done this year.
Normally have the
so-
police department go and visit the property owner and say, hey, you gotta take care of this. Generally, they do after.
But as you
visit.
saw, I mean, just Big Y is the main one that everyone saw and was complaining about, and I would drove by there. I mean,
So
that's,
did we ever contact DOT?
The office that Michelle contacted.
So, but they just didn't respond?
Yeah, they were out there. They did the bridges. They did the bridge, just the Succeed Bridge, but they didn't come down that way.
I think the way DOT looks at it is that the private entity of Big Y should be cleaning their sidewalk. Then Big Y goes back and says, hey, we did clean it, your truck's covered, it's, the back and forth type thing. So ultimately, I think it's the, Big Y's responsibility. But he's one still involved in that.
okay. So if you did it. And
We
you
would
went
build
by,
it, absolutely.
okay,
But there's a notification process that has to happen.
okay. All right, thank you.
James?
Yeah.
At the risk of spending more money, I just want to bring something up, because we have a lot of new members, but if you sit in my office, one of the biggest complaints you're gonna hear is that people want more bulk trash pickup. And we've discussed it at the finance board many years. We haven't talked about it in a few years, but I don't know how many years ago, maybe 5 years ago, we set up a bulk trash subcommittee. I think it's Rocky, Bob, Matt, who else, someone else?
It was me and it was,
Somebody-
what's his name?
Somebody who left.
Yeah, there. Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Okay, but, a lot of people want more bulk trash pickup. It's a big ticket item. We studied it. At the time, I'm just gonna say it was like a $500,000 or $600,000 item. So we deferred it for 3 or 4 years. And we haven't talked about it in at least 2 years.
I got refreshed numbers last year, about 6 months ago.
I'm not suggesting we include it,
1.2.
but we should at least keep looking at it and evaluating it. So when we're able to, we can put it in the budget.
1.2
Well, that's for the whole town.
for the whole town,
What?
for the whole town, yeah.
Yeah,
We're pretty close to projecting that number 5 years ago.
Bulk trash we used to have many years ago.
Oh.
Long time ago. You can put your stuff out once a year and the town would come and haul it away. But that was, okay, I've been living here 40 years, maybe it was 30 years ago, Ron? You think 30 years ago was the last time?
Probably like since the 80s. Yeah. When makes
Yeah.
sense.
And once you add on the tipping fees, it's way up.
Yeah.
I think I've been evaluating this whole process and I've been getting numbers and I knew it was gonna come back again. That's why I got new numbers about 6 months ago from our garbage contractor from USA. I reached out to Eric from USA. I reached out to a few surrounding towns that do it, Treasures is big because, the whole one's treasure is trash, another's treasure. In my opinion, I think that we should probably put out a bid and try to get private entities like those small little trash companies, give a flat rate. Pick up in town, like, and charge a resident, but charge them, but give a flat rate so people aren't taking advantage of residents. Probably do it as a town-wide so that if they have a TV to be picked up or other stuff, they could actually. They're bidding on a flat rate for the town. I think that that's what we should get, like smaller entities to do that. And maybe even cover the disposal if a person, pays the fee or we pay the fee, or there's lesser if they dispose at our transfer station. With our manpower, we can't do it. I mean, there's just so much on all of our plates, we can't do it.
Or the equipment.
Right, and to do one town, so what happens is with the towns I spoke to is one of the bigger issues too, is that. People, they set out parameters, if you're gonna put out stuff, and then those parameters aren't followed.
Yeah, what a
So then
surprise.
we have a problem, because now we have to go back and pick up everything they put out there, they put out the 5-gallon jug of motor oil, or their cooking grease, or something that
They
was,
don't pick it up after we leave it,
and then
and then it
the-
wasn't
the
them, they put it out there.
Yeah, the contractor comes and takes what they're supposed to take, and the rest, it's at the best resident's responsibility, which leaves garbage strewn all over. In Cheshire, they have people that bring stuff, change their mind because they saw something nicer and leave what they had in their truck in somebody's front yard and take the other option because that table was nicer and the chair was nicer. Now they don't have room for that TV, so they dump it. Yeah, it's like a big swap all the way to the ground. So that's where they run into a lot of issues. It's almost cost just as much as to take what's left behind by the contract. They don't need certain things. Or you have to put it in piles, like separate piles.
By adding bulk pickup at our expenses, that reduce the revenues we're getting from the transfer station.
We don't really have revenues from the transfer station. I'm pretty sure if I was to look at the numbers, it's probably a wash, or we're probably at a loss. Because.
You need my $20, isn't it?
Just
That
not
was you need
covering
something,
it.
my $20.
Just not covering it. I don't get the revenues, that usually downtown calculates the revenues, but, they come in from it, but if it's a wash, it's a good year, you're probably at a loss. So it's more of a service that we're providing to the town, it's not, we're not looking to make money, so.
As an alternative, have we considered doing it the way we do like the road repairs or like residents call like, hey, the curb is no good? The town comes out and fixes the curb. Can we do something with a junk pickup company that when people have something near?
Well, that's what it is, it's getting that contract. The only thing is we want to keep people honest, right, that they're not taking advantage of our residents too, so it's really getting out there and saying, hey, do you want to be a townwide? They could actually do the finances with the resident, as long as they're charging the resident that price free. Because that's where we run into a problem is, elderly are being taken advantage, or people that just don't know any better.
Yeah, we added that to our contract with F and G. it's just so pricey. Their numbers were just, it was just very
Yeah,
expensive. People
so
were
but there's,
just,
there's a lot
you
of.
can call them and say,
companies
come
that-
by and pick this stuff up, but no one's ever
This
hired.
essentially is jumping the things.
Well,
on
my,
the state.
not for nothing, but my husband had one of those lawn mowers, the riding lawn mowers,
Yeah.
and it like, he couldn't fix it, it just
Disappeared.
died. So what he did was he called this junk company, they came and picked it up for free and took it away. So they have
If
those.
it's metal, you just put it out there, it disappears.
Yeah, well, it wasn't metal,
People
somebody came
also
and
like
picked it
to
up.
just cupcake stuff, like I
Yeah.
put things out there with just a piece of paper that says free and it's gone an hour later.
Exactly.
And it could be garbage, like.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back on track, because I wanna
Yeah.
leave. All right, so bulk trash was a $1.2 million expense. That's not happening this year. Thank you for doing your research. Sorry, Mayor Pete. We're moving on.
He's not.
That happens when you leave the room. What's next?
You tell me.
That's the end of,
Engineering,
now we're going in engineering.
B5.
All right, thank you, Allison. B5, engineering.
Okay, so,
So it's a surplus. Get to the punchline.
I'm have good stuff coming. Okay, so first line is payroll contractual. Then we have a 10,000 reduction in environmental testing and compliance. This had to do with permits that we had to write last year. I'm also suggesting that we take another $4,500 off of this for the Thurston's Pond annual inspection. I'm trying to get that done out of this year's budget. So that number can drop down to 23,500. And then I'm reallocating between the accounts for the phase 2 stormwater. That goes up to 16. So it's a net savings, but it's just a really different account. So that's our municipal separate storm sewer system in town. The state mandates we do testing and reporting and of the outfalls.
So you want that to 23.5
So I want that to 23,500
from 28.
from 28.
Thank you.
Individual equipment outlays. Fred last year got a file storage system, which and this year, which wasn't added. He would like a map storage system. So he's got file storage, but obviously Fred has got rolls and rolls and rolls of maps and plans, all 100 years old. He's got to keep everything's scanned in, but we still want to keep the originals, obviously. To fit the storage system, he had to get rid of an old wooden box that will all come in. So for 2255, he's requesting a what do they call it? A map tower shelving system.
So we saved and we're adding.
$2,255.
Yes.
All right, any other questions for this section?
I'd like to backtrack a second.
Sure.
I'm sorry, Jim. I'm not really a fan of the golf course. The reason why I say that is, I think you already know. I live on Spring Street. Do you have a golf pro there?
We do.
Can he teach these people how to play? Because the problem, the problem I'm having, and I've been having this for years. And supposedly you guys changed the tee box, so it wasn't facing my house anymore. Unfortunately, it's worse. I have 4 balls in my yard today. I get an average of 4 to 5 balls every day. I can't even park in my driveway because I'm afraid they're going to hit my car. We talked about this last year at this meeting. And here we are again, and I'm still having the same problem.
No netting or?
No, there's nothing.
We had priced netting and it was.
Did you add a tree first, Smitty?
Yes, you added a tree. The tree was this skinny. I'll be dead by the time that tree matures.
It's gotta be a little bit bigger.
No, it's a little bigger now, but it's
the netting outweigh the cost of any damages he might be getting to his property over time? I mean, between like not being able to use his driveway, so I know it'd be a
Probably
cost up front,
cheaper to
I know
buy
we're
his
trying to
house.
save money, guys, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Yeah, buy his house. I mean, because I mean, the balls are way up there. And they, you know, I mean, they're not line
At
drives.
the
they're-
next meeting, I'm bringing all the balls that I have in my garage that I collect.
You could really sell them.
Oh, I know that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But no, it's an issue when it's like, it's concerning because I have little kids.
I mean, we'll
They
talk
can't even
about
play over
it
there.
At the golf commission and see if any other ideas come up.
I mean, I enjoy the summer, but I can't enjoy the summer in my driveway because I can't park there. I understand I bought property by the golf course, but I just feel as though there's got to be some we could do. It's crazy.
Have Scott look at it.
Yeah, we'll talk to the greenskeeper and see if he can come up with an idea and Brian, the pro and.
Well, Brian, I don't think will be helpful, but Scott,
Maybe we can tell, if you can tell people how to.
Oh, it's like, it's insane because I mean, that's why I asked, is there a pro there? Because they need lessons. You know?
How much?
Oh, everybody on my street complains because they just
Jim, how much
stop.
was the net?
Beach balls.
I don't
Stop.
remember exactly, but it was very
Ken
expensive.
slices
We can
all
price
the
it
time,
again.
I mean, is it something that could be offset by like the charge of the golfers, like increasing $2 a golfer or something, and then it's paid for?
Potentially.
I mean, I've had my garage windows broken, which I had replaced. I had a claim put in from my insurance company, but it's like it's ongoing every year. And it's like, you know, I call up the golf course because I see the golf maintenance guy out there and he's telling me, oh, the greens they're coming off. Oh, here we go. Now I got to park somewhere else. You know, and it's just, it's a shame. I've been here 45 years and I had this problem.
I wish I could say something.
Yeah, no. That's my opinion. That's all.
Thank you, Smitty.
Thank you.
All right, 4th of July, beach one. I think that's our final.
4th of July?
Stays the same.
Good work, Sandy.
Oh, but I just have one question. It says for last year, it was 26.2. Why?
Yeah, I'll have to look.
No,
Something.
26.2 was the actual expended.
I know. It's like the-
For 24, for fiscal year 25, I don't know, I have to
The
look.
contract was for 25, so I don't know.
I'll have to see what happened.
We're staying the same, one event. It will be held for the first time in quite a few years on the 4th of July. We have the 4th of July date, for this coming year of, July 4th, with the rain date, Friday. So our event will be, fireworks will be on 4th of July this year. With a rain date of July 5th on Saturday.
Wow.
Not charging us. We'd always got a discount price because we didn't do the board, right?
Yeah, this new vendor, says that, well, he's been here for a few years, but now there's not much of a difference, there's not much of a push, everybody has their date set, so he gets the staff ready, so he told me that it wouldn't have an impact on the budget, so we're doing it. I mean, it wasn't always that, typically, I like to have it on the day before, because I think it's a kickoff to the weekend, so a lot of people go away to the weekend, especially if it is on a Friday or Saturday. But now it's the 4th of July, right, Friday comes the first Saturday. I typically like to kick it off the weekend because it's an evening event and, we do it on Firehouse Road, so it doesn't have a whole lot of impact on businesses on Friday afternoon. But this year it's there on a Friday and.
You know, this, I used to check it for,
It's better.
hail. In like.
All right, so
I need a dome.
thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly.
Just to prep everyone for next week, we have a very long agenda. Usually we use that morning. What's that? Oh, library. I don't have that on here.
Next week. It's on next
Well,
week.
she's here though. She's
here.
been here the whole time. Can we do it?
That's just all the time.
What's we can definitely run through it quickly. No, you're here. You're here the whole time. Let's talk about bulk pickup and
Well, if we have it, let's do
might
it.
as well.
May as well. One less
I
thing.
just don't know where they're in the.
It's not like you live down the street, you're driving here from store.
All right, so let's.
It's the long haul.
B11. Don't have anything.
Yeah. Next week. It's on the schedule for next week.
Where's it? Oh, there.
We got it. We can copy it.
What number is it?
Who's down there?
Any increase?
No,
Just
Oh.
talk about it. No increase.
No
Exactly the same.
Good job, library. Well, all of that, just for zero.
All right.
It was an interesting
So-
meeting
I'm
anyway.
good.
What's that?
Paul, do you want to say anything?
Would you like me to? I did write something up, but I'm just gonna give you some, I'll read it to you. The Whittemore Library strives to serve the community by providing diverse resources and materials and innovative programming through all ages and stages. We continue to be a vital resource for the residents of Naugatuck, as evidenced by the over 80,000 visitors we welcomed last year. In fiscal year 24-25, we offered over 500 programs with over 11,000 attendees. In addition to our programs and events, we provide reference services to help patrons find print and digital resources, research specific topics, and support technology use. We have computers for public use, which were used more than 5,000 times last year. And while we continue to expand our available digital resources to meet demand, our print circulation is still steady, with us loaning out more than 56,333 physical items last year. We seek out grant opportunities to support our initiatives and supplement our funding. Last year, we, along with 7 other Connecticut libraries, received a $250,000 federal grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services to pilot a regional digital navigator program. This initiative funded multilingual digital navigators who worked one-on-one with residents who needed assistance accessing digital service or a computer, or who were seeking to develop basic technology or digital literacy skills. In addition to the technology training these navigators provided, this grant also offered free technology. And so far, the digital navigators have given 89 tablets or laptops to Naugatuck residents, mainly adult ed students. This year's budget request maintains our current level of funding, which will continue to provide the resources, materials, and programming to benefit the community. We greatly appreciate the borough's continued support of the library through advocacy and funding.
Thank you.
M&Ms.
So,
We're gonna see, are you coming?
I hope so.
question.
Let's see.
Given that the school system is kind of removing or eliminating in their budget the media specialists.
Library media specialist at the intermediate school.
Right, so I thought I heard it was at another school as
They're
well.
cutting one at the high school. They have one. People
So-
up there still.
Will that increase the traffic to the local library at all, do you think?
Right now, I mean, as a teacher in the intermediate level, a lot of our kids go to the children's library on a regular basis. Because both Hillside and Cross Street have extremely limited space and extremely limited library collections. So mainly it's the collections of books that are provided by teachers in the classroom. So the services they provide there are already having huge impact, at least on the intermediate level, kids 5 through 6, I can speak.
Okay.
In elementary school, you have many libraries that are on a cart already or a hallway already. So the services that you get are more valuable.
And we do card drives with the elementary schools and tours, so we really work to get the kids in early.
Do you have statistics for measuring on ebooks and borrowing ebooks
Yeah.
versus the hardback?
Yes, I do, and ebooks are increasing monthly, so I keep reallocating print money to digital.
I just thought it was worth
Yeah.
noting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
huge.
It's huge.
I have an unrelated question. So one of my friends, I just started listening to audiobooks, but he said if you have a library card, there's some benefit. How does that
Well, you
work?
can listen for free, so we have Hoopla.
So if I get a library
You
card,
should, you have a library card.
I do?
You should.
Okay, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, so two ways. We have Hoopla and we have Overdrive. It's two different ways to use audio and ebooks. And I can talk you through both of them. They're both apps. Hoopla I like better because everything that you see is available immediately. Overdrive or Libby, you have to get on the wait list, but yeah, it's great.
All right, I'll stop by.
You know, the ebooks too have a longer, I mean, obviously, more impactful financially what you're paying for. Unlike if you're getting the hard copy, which I love the feel and touch of a real book. That's I still stick with my life. My wife likes her ebooks, but you don't have to weed.
Right.
And pay people to go through and remove old books from the collection. That saves man hours and long time. So in the long term, this ebook we were paying is going to have even bigger savings.
No,
I'm with
that's not
you.
for that, huh?
Hardball.
I like hard stuff.
I have, me too.
Can I ask something? I've been to the library on occasion and hanging out, trying to use the computers over there. They're sort of not the best in terms of updates. Do you have projections for that would impact your budget or anything?
Well, we do have a problem because most of our machines are Windows 10 and Windows 11 is coming in October. So we are going to have some issues with updates. We have a hybrid system, we have Chromes and we have window machines. So it's really going to only affect the Windows machines, but we purchased 3 new machines last fiscal year and we're planning on buying 2 more this year. So we're kind of slowly chipping away.
No, the Windows 10, those units, could they be up?
They,
Some of them cannot. They might not.
no, they can't. So that's what we're running into. So we have to buy, the software and the licensing, or we move to more Chrome machines, which are not as user friendly for some people, so.
So Jim K has a PC replacement cycle for us. Maybe our volume purchasing could help you with your prices.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if
but-
you wanna talk to Jim about,
That-
synchronizing your buying
Sure.
our rotation.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry to keep you waiting. I would have called you up first. I'm sorry.
See you all next.
I didn't even see you back there.
But
Like,
All right, so for next week, we still have a very long agenda. Well, we got through library tonight, including capital projects at the very end. So definitely be prepared to be here for a long one. And that's all. So we'll see you next week.
You're the central
Adjourn at 8:12 p.m.
Clock above your head.